a ministry called Study Grow Know Ministries. I also write a number of blogs for a number of different websites. WayneDupree.com, also known as News Ninja 2012.com, and a number of others as well. I write on things that are pertinent to our society, things that I believe are corrupting society, making them worse, not making them better. And a lot of this comes from the left, as usual. But I want to comment on something, and you're going to see me looking down because some of it I'm going to be reading because I want to make sure I get it right. But I'm talking today about white privilege, and it is one of the tenets built into something called critical race theory, or CRT, which was founded by Dr. Derek Bell, a black gentleman who was, I believe, the first black professor of law at Harvard. And in the 1970s, this theory became well known, and it was propagated and perpetuated by people on the left who believe that white privilege is what is keeping minorities and women down. I've got a few things to say about that. And the sad part of this, and I want to make this clear, is that this is finding its way into the schools. So if you are a parent of someone who is in the public school system, please be aware that this is making its way there. It's kind of built in to the Common Core by the recommendations of books, not necessarily the specific lessons, but the books that are being used or promoted to teach Common Core. Now, as far as white privilege, I see it as the newest form of acceptable racist bullying from the left. It's pernicious, gaining momentum throughout society, and pleasing to leftists everywhere. And the term white privilege has come to mean that if you are born white, well, then you're privileged, period. By virtue of the fact that a person is born as a white person. They're born with not a silver spoon in their mouth, but I guess maybe a white gold spoon in their mouths, apparently. Being born white means that many privileges have come to you or to me solely because you are white. Money comes to you. Don't you wake up every day as a white person and find money just where you didn't expect it? Because you're white. It just comes to you. Job opportunities come to you. And gee, do you even have to apply for those jobs? No, they're just there, right? In effect, being white means not having to earn anything because of the unearned opportunities that simply come your way. The goal of those within the white privilege camp who believe it, who propagate it, who foist it on society, is literally to force white people to realize their unearned yet privileged status. We need to own up to it, and we also need to come to the realization that we are inherently racists as white people. Now, it's a very pernicious, surreptitious form of bullying by the left. And the most interesting thing about it is that it is insidious and based on nothing except words by people like the previously mentioned Dr. Derek Bell, father of the racist theory known as critical race theory, or CRT. White privilege, as I mentioned, is part and parcel of CRT. And here's just some of the tenets of CRT. They include this, but they're not limited to this, but just some of them off the top of my head that I listed earlier. White people are inherently racist. White people are magnets for opportunities that people of color don't automatically enjoy. White people should realize they need to get to the back of the line, or better, to get out of the line entirely. White people who are also Christians are the worst of the worst. I'll explain that in a minute. People of color, quote unquote, cannot be racist toward whites. That's one of the tenets. It's one of the things built into the critical race theory. They can't be racist toward whites. White people can be discriminated against, but not be on the receiving end of racism. Now, these are just some more of the, I guess, what I consider to be the asinine aspects of critical race theory as seen in white privilege. And I think it's fascinating that during the 1970s, mainly blacks, but a few other minorities, sat around and came up with something that on its face appears to be theoretically true because it was created in the halls of academia. It has not one smidgen of proof that it is viable or true, yet people believe it. The idea that just because a person is born white, he or she has ample amounts of opportunities and an automatic leg up on society is absolutely absurd. Yet this belief, this theory, idea persists because it provides a seemingly astute line of reasoning, right? That allows blacks and other minorities to be racist toward whites while they're able to deny that they are racist toward whites. Now, the general definition of racism is defined as hatred or intolerance of a specific race of people. Can black people hate whites? Can they be intolerant of whites? Of course they can. They're human beings with the same propensities toward evil that we all share. This is roundly denied, though, by people who tend to agree with the pervasive evil assault on truth known as critical race theory and white privilege. White privilege is the reason for the following things in society. Black on white crime rarely is ever termed hate crime. Special interest groups exist for minorities, NAACP, the Black Caucus, the Hispanic Caucus, BET TV. Can you imagine white TV? No. A growing awareness of the thought police and the fact that you can be fired based on racially motivated comments you might have said. That's all part and parcel of the alleged white privilege. Now, I would say that people like Sterling, co-owner of the, I believe it's the Clippers basketball team, I would say that his racially motivated comments are based on nothing more than the fact that he himself is a racist. Does it have to do with that he's white? He's a white person who owns or part owns a basketball team. Have we seen racially insensitive comments from non-whites? Yes. Have we seen racially insensitive comments from white people on the left? Yes. Those comments are rarely mentioned in the news. They're rarely highlighted. They're quickly buried. It's only when you're a conservative or a conservative Christian that you are made out to be terribly evil. Now, there are many other reasons for what we can see happening in society, and though we see the left constantly referring to aspects of critical race theory, normally white privilege, and that's becoming a big thing, the upshot of the whole thing is that it's all part of the same Marxist policies known as cultural Marxism. Cultural Marxism purports to reinvent and redefine society, moving it toward communism, or at the very least socialism. And this is where everyone, of course, regardless of race, creed, religion, ethnicity, etc., has an equal piece of the pie. Cultural Marxism attempts to move society toward a truly egalitarian society where every person is treated the same as every other person. However, there's a caveat here. In order for cultural Marxism to bring society to that point of egalitarian unity, it first must actually separate the races and attempt to take into consideration the abuses from one race to another in previous generations. That means that in early America, when whites owned black slaves, even though none of those people are alive today, on either side of the equation, the owners or the slaves, the white race must suffer the consequences of the actions of their forefathers. That's the belief. because the belief is that, hey, white people are still alive today in America. They came from those racist whites, even though there was a North and the South, and by and large, the North didn't own slaves. The South did. And by the way, there were also black slave owners. But because whites exist in America today, they're thought to be or believed to be inherently racist. Now, the absurdity is that in cases like mine, both sets of my grandparents legally immigrated to the United States well after the Civil War was over. That means that no one in my family ever owned slaves in America. They had nothing to do with the whole slavery issue. But that doesn't matter to the bean counters. All whites must pay. That's the reality that we're having to deal with. That is what is at stake. And I'd like to say that, of course, it's based on a lie, but that's what Alinsky uses, right? That's what he uses. If you tell a lie often enough, it'll become the truth. And that's what the left is counting on, because we have a dreadful dearth of unsound people who are unable, can't do it, can't think critically. So they accept what is fed to them. Now, unfortunately, the duplicity and hypocrisy of the left is seen for what it is when no comments are directed toward Islam or its excessive violence. And yet, the same people who completely ignore the brutality and oppression of Islam will deign to say that Christianity is not a religion at all. It is merely a systemic form of oppression against women and minorities. And since Christianity was introduced to America from white Europeans who came over here, those who propagate white privilege believe they have scored a point. Again, though, we see their hypocrisy in the fact that they're not calling out Islam. The reason they're not calling out Islam is because their goal is to basically overwhelm society with Marxist philosophies. And Islam actually helps because it stands in direct opposition to Christianity. The goal of the left is to destroy American society. And for the left, it's always done through lying. We got to remember that. It is their main weapon. It's what they're very good at. And Alinsky, mentioned it. It's one of his rules, and they take it to heart. The goal of the left, remember, is to destroy American society. They do that by overturning what has been traditional values within American society, recreating it so that it becomes something else. And we hear a lot of these mixed signals in society. The left speaks about bullying when it comes to homosexuality. They rise up against it. Yet they're some of the biggest bullies around when it comes to having a conservative viewpoint. The left speaks of discrimination and racism towards people of color, yet the left constantly discriminates against white men, especially through their racist theories that they believe to be true. And beyond this, look at the way they treat blacks. They're enslaved on the plantation through entitlement programs and Marxism, and they don't realize it. White privilege does not exist except in the minds of those who are looking for excuses for their own failures. They need to blame someone because they don't want to take blame. They don't want to take the responsibility because that's what mature people do. The left is not mature, and neither do they pander to mature individuals. They are liars. And if I may say, the Bible says that Satan was a liar from the beginning. He was a murderer from the beginning. That's what the left masters in, lying. Just read some of their articles. They're liars for what they leave out. They're liars for what they imply. The left has created a system of slavery for minorities by entitlement. And in order for them to continue in this vein, they must portray conservative whites as hostile to their plan. They don't want blacks to be helped. They don't want minorities to be given a leg up. Well, that's stupid in its untruth. That is absolutely not true at all. What we don't want is for blacks and other minorities to be helplessly chained to the government, and the government offers no solution. The left offers no solution except here's a program, entitlement program for you. That's not a solution. That's slavery. I mean, the whole thing is garbage, especially considering the fact that there is not one special interest group looking out for the interests of whites. And anytime one starts to rise, it is immediately defamed and labeled racist. Can't have that, can you? Imagine wearing a shirt that says white pride. Oh, KKK. It's okay to wear a shirt that says brown pride, black pride, yellow pride. If you're an alien, I suppose you could wear green pride. That'd be okay. You can't have one that says white pride. That's racist. I see. Now, if whites are so privileged, though, let me ask a question. Why, after so many generations, so many decades of dealing with groups like the NAACP, has there really been no gains in helping blacks and other minorities achieve much, if anything? It's only when blacks remove themselves from the systemic oppression of the left, they begin to make true inroads in society. Yet the left can't bear that, so what do? They denigrate those blacks and other minorities. They refer to them as sellouts or Uncle Tom. They accuse them of being chained to our system of oppression. Yet they're free. You hear the blacks themselves say they're free. Standing against the fallacy of white privilege means standing against the bullies on the left. I'm up for it. How about you? If you are a parent, you need to know that this white privilege fallacy is making its way into the school system. It's what teachers are forcing down the throats of your children. You need to be aware of this so that you can, with intelligence, make the best decision for your child. I'm Dr. Fred from Study, Grow, Know, and I thank you for joining me. Check me out again. You can go to my blog, Study, Grow, Know blog, to keep up with me. I've got a whole bunch of books at studygrowknow.com where you can download them free of charge as PDFs, or you can buy them. It's up to you. Save yourself some bucks and download them free of charge. I also write for Wayne Dupree, News Ninjas, 2012.com or WayneDupree.com, and I write for Freedom Outpost, and I write for TheAmericanJournal.com. Folks, have a blessed day in the Lord, and we will talk with you later.